Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Curtis Selby, your tired midnight blogger who blogs in this case at 6:01 p.m. I see there are 3 people here. Welcome, whoever you may be. I suspect one of you is probably John Pontiero. I hope it's okay to say your name on the line, even though I'm probably butchering your last name. JPRPH1, thank you very much. Your loyalty, your support, your kindness, your prayers, very much appreciated. And Resolute Germ, howdy, you as well are very welcome. Thank you for your support. I think you were in the last stream. Thank you for your patience. I want to apologize for the last stream. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to call anybody out. Any failings on this channel are mine, and I'm responsible for what goes on. But I just feel that the last stream was not even one of my best. I don't think it, I hope it was still somewhat entertaining, somewhat informative, but definitely not something I intend to repeat in the future. I was going to make some bold statement about putting people on panels and stuff. Instead, I'm just going to say that I'm going to be much more cautious going forward about who I allow on the panels of my streams. But again, responsibility is mine. I'm not going to blame anyone else. Got my lame excuses. They've been going through my head all day. But they don't matter. Good evening, Matt Wood. Greetings to you. Thank you also for your support and your loyalty and for the stupid caps lock. Also, thank you for having my back on the last stream. I know that was kind of a crap show. I will probably not repeat some of those mistakes. Hopefully it wasn't terrible. Today I'm going to be talking about the show The Rings of Power. I've got so much to say, it's just crazy, but I likely won't get to all of it, and that's okay. I'll get to as much as I can. Hopefully, y'all will join me later at Netter's Network, or also I know Raquel has a watch stream going. I may ping pong between the 2 channels or something in the chat. Start off with, I got to be careful about, because I could go on and on for hours about my love for Tolkien. The woman that I'm dating had the possibly unfortunate experience of listening to me last night talk just in breadth and detail about the Silmarillion, which I have resting by my right hand, on and on and on and on. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On and on, he just keeps on trying. And he blogs when he feels like dying. On and on, on and on, on and on. From one crap show to another. Yes. You got it. I've got the Silmarillion sitting beside me. I may read from it depending on how this stream goes, depending on what the community would like to hear. I had started using my icon that I'm using as the thumbnail, but for some reason I couldn't share it on X, so I changed that thumbnail. But I wanted to keep it somewhere in the background, because to me it's one of the big themes, not just of Tolkien, but of a lot of great fiction and a lot of modern philosophy. Oh, he's tired of his soft. on this soft pro. Oh, it was kind of chilling me out. And it would be good to read from that. Perhaps the producers of the show might learn something. Oh, tag. Oh, the image here is having a senior moment. Hopefully I don't get the names wrong. I just said that I love it, and now I'm tired enough that I can't remember all the names. But this is the Dark Lord, basically the Satan of Tolkien's world, Morgoth, who is fighting, I want to say it is Fingolfin. Sometimes I get Fingolfin and Finarfin mixed up. But basically, this great big battle happened, and lots of people just died, and Fingolfin kind of more or less lost his mind and rode alone to the gates of Angband, which is basically the iron hells of that world. He challenged Morgoth to a single combat, and the only time in history that Morgoth ever actually took one of those challenges. It did not end well for Fingolfin, but the premise is the powerful, the dark, the evil, the soulless, battling the small, the good, the just, the righteous, the lover of freedom. And yes, Fingolfin goes down, but he does something that also no one but a god ever does in all of history except for him, if I remember right. Well, there might be another time, but he basically he stabs Morgoth with his dying breath in the ankles, and more or less, he doesn't exactly maim him because he's a god, but he walks, quote unquote, halt of foot for the remaining centuries that he's on the earth. Matt Cheatwood thinks that the producers know exactly what they are doing. And I'm very torn about this one. I really am, because I want to love this show so bad. I really do. My question is, I'll put it this way. I love The Hobbit. Not nearly to the degree that I love anything else Tolkien, but I loved it. I had to do some mental gymnastics to do so. I had to basically say, well, this isn't Tolkien's Hobbit. This is just a spiffy fantasy that's very similar to it. And I'm asking myself on this one, why am I feeling like I have to do mental gymnastics again? And is it me, or is it the show? Morgoth was, in fact, Sauron's boss. That is correct. That's why he doesn't really appear much in the show itself. They have him for about a second, taking out the light of the trees in Amon. And that's actually one of the cool moments of the show. There's a lot of beautiful things about the show, too. And I will discuss those first. JPRBH1 thinks that Matt is right. Matt Cheatwood said, yes, he does him an injury. Yeah, again, there's exactly one other mortal I can think of that gives him a very minor cut on his face. And I'd forgotten about that. Baron Ocamian, when he chiseled out the Silmaril from the Dark Lord's crown, his knife snapped, and the knife just mildly pricked Morgoth's face and woke him up. But that wasn't an injury. And Morgoth had other injuries from different battles, but those were all inflicted by gods. Fingolfin's the only mortal thing, if you want to count an elf as a mortal. I realize that's kind of equivocating. Matt Cheatwood, I wanted it to be worth loving too. I'd be interested to know if you watched any of it. Please let me know in the chat what your thoughts were. If I'm not going to invalidate certain people's ideas, I'm sure as hell not going to invalidate yours. Let me shut this down, and I will share. This is going to be about my views, but I do want to share basically what some of the talk is that's going around. I'll start with the positive, because let's face it, I think most of us agree that positive should win over the negative. Having said that, you see what happened to the positive in the battle between Morgoth and Fingolfin. But hopefully I'm not Morgoth. The Rings of Power. First reactions praise its stunning visuals and brilliant cast. Now, I will agree that the visuals, at least that I've seen, are incredible. I will give them that. It's kind of like Star Wars. I've got tons of criticisms of the Star Wars movies, but they actually had some amazing effects and some amazing visuals. Matt Cheatwood hasn't watched a single moment of it directly. You've watched several analysis of it. Yeah, and right or wrong, I've watched a couple too. And I don't know if part of me thinks, well, I kind of wish I hadn't gotten the spoiler, because then I could have made up my own mind about it. But the spoiler, to me, is the thing that tips the scales into the negative. John Pontorero, thank you for showing up there. I know you're on your second channel. It's the show's not even so underlying agenda that causes a lot of issues for me. I watched the whole first season and said no to season 2. The Return to the Middle Earth is almost here. Fans cannot wait to see the Rings of Power. I had a lot of trepidation before it came on. And I also had a lot of hope. I was really hoping for something like Peter Jackson, and there are some elements that remind me of Peter Jackson. The visuals are incredible. A lot of the setting, a lot of the costuming, this actually does look to me like I could envision Galadriel, a few thousand years younger. I can envision her looking like that. Elrond, I'm okay with him. I'm not sure what I think about this Gil-galad guy, but I won't read through all of them. Of course, there's love for the women characters, especially Galadriel, played by Morvid Clark. Women are truly set to lead the way in the Rings of Power. We love to see it. And I don't want to criticize that. Sorry, watching here too for hours. Oh, it's the show's not even so underlying agenda. Yeah. I read that. Sorry, watching here too for hours. Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. I need those watch hours. I haven't checked today, but last I checked, I was up to 1,500. So I'm about halfway there. Look, I want strong women in the movies. I do. And I'm absolutely okay with a movie or a show having a woman as the central character. If I was going to do a Rings of Power myself and I was going to center it around a woman, I don't know that it would have been Galadriel, but she is a strong second choice. I like the relationship she had with her brother. I find myself not loving it. The dwarves, I love. I absolutely love the dwarves, and I know some people take umbrage with the the wife, and maybe I just haven't gotten deep enough into it, but I have nothing against her. I have nothing against the black elf. Again, I know some people who do, and that's okay. I can respect your opinion, but again, I don't know that I love the character, but I like the character. He's watchable. Matt Cheatwood, women are strong, independent leaders until the draft comes up. Well, you have a point. I don't have a problem with Galadriel being a badass, although I think I know feelings aren't what matter, but I've always felt like she was more of a mage or a priest than a fighter. I'm okay though with that. That's not a problem to me. There were some very fun scenes with her fighting monsters and stuff. But I found my spidey sense tingling before the show was made. I found it tingling. I watched it about a year ago, the first 3 episodes, with my liberal friends, who are probably sorry that they ever told me anything about their politics. But I guess the best way to put it was I ended the 3rd episode a year ago guardedly neutral. I was determined I was going to watch some more episodes and then make a decision about it. And then I think a lot of you know, but a while back, one of my liberal friends sent me a text, and I guess they don't understand that I've had a change of heart, and I'm not really meaning to be horrible about it, but he sent me a text from one of the threads about this guy saying, well, as predicted, there are people criticizing the Rings of Power because of quote unquote lore and canon. And basically, you can't criticize this show because it's based off of the bare bones basics of the appendices in the Lord of the Rings proper. And I kind of went off on him because, number one, what is wrong with criticizing something for lore and canon? Nobody has explained this to me. Now, if you are just being a racist meathead, and you're just saying, well, blacks have no place in Tolkien. Look, it was a different time. I have no idea. I can't speak for Tolkien. I know he had blacks in his world, but he was basically making an English mythology. And I don't mean to be racist, but by and large, at least until Africans were imported over, the vast bulk of English people were white. I hope that's not racist to point out, but I have no problem if you want to make a modern retelling. Fine, throw in black people, throw in women, whatever, But there is something that still, it just makes me cringe. I'm going to go with the Screen Rant criticism of the Rings of Power. I didn't do a great job of covering the positives. Sorry. The Rings of Power, 10 most valid criticisms of the series according to Reddit. Now, I know Reddit is a dumpster fire, so obviously we've got to take this with a grain of salt. The discussion surrounding the Rings of Power series has been heated for months leading up to the series premiere. The 2 episodes seem to do little to calm things down. Prime Videos has now implemented a 72-hour delay for all user reviews posted to the platform after the series faced an onslaught of undeserved 1-star feedback. Interesting. I definitely have mixed feelings about that. This review bombing seemed to come from those who felt that the casting of people of color in a series set in Middle-earth did not align with Tolkien's books. Redditors could share their love and excitement while offering much more valid forms of criticism than those centered only on politics. From the overall look of the Rings of Power to the abilities and languages used by specific characters, Redditors had a few notes about how the first few episodes were lacking and how future seasons could improve. Let me check the chat here. Matthew Cheatwood, there were dark-skinned people in Middle-earth, the Easterlings and the Southrons. Yeah. And again, at the risk of sounding racist, they were largely the bad guys. Again, to me, if you really wanted to meld like Tolkien with kind of a modernish thing, you either make it about the Southrons, or which it kind of is doing. But then the weird thing is most of the Southrons that they're showing are white. It's the elf that is black. But I can do the mental gymnastics. Oh, hey, Cyberpunk Dystopia, greetings. Yeah, most of Middle-earth did follow Morgoth and Sauron. Yeah, sadly true. Cyberpunk Dystopia, men were evil except for a few. Yeah, and that was the whole point of Numenor, which is what I thought the show would mainly be about. The Silmarillion has a beautiful retelling of that story, and I know that evidently they can't use the rights for that. I don't really understand that. Okay. And they're basically using just the notes from the Lord of the Rings. And I get there's not a lot there, but there's enough to still fill out a good show. They don't really have to change what's there. You add to it, sure, but they don't really have to change it. People saying hi to each other. Hail, Connie Cleary. Welcome to my ramblings about the Rings of Power. I hope that you find this mildly entertaining, maybe informative. Connie Cleary, check out her channels. She has wonderful birds, and it is awesome. No, it's okay. I sometimes doze off. Reference back to the tired blogger. Okay, so their criticisms is that Rings of Power looks too much like a generic fantasy. I'm not going to necessarily agree with that, because to me, Tolkien is the cornerstone of fantasy. So, I think there was that criticism, although likely less vehement, about Peter Jackson's movies. What I will say, however, is that had they just made this as a fantasy and not tried to tie it to Tolkien, I honestly think I could have loved it. I might have felt that I might have felt that spidey sense as far as the agenda and stuff, but the honest truth is I still could have loved it on its own rights if it hadn't been sold to us as a Tolkien thing. And I apologize. I also know, I believe probably Cyberpunk, you will disagree with me maybe, and that's okay. Although you do say that it gets a lot better later on, is what, if I understood you correctly. Feel free to leave, stuff in the chat and let me know what you think. There are two contradicting sides within the Lord of the Rings fandom about how the Prime Video series should look. Some felt, as part of the grandfather, some of the best fantasies, the Rings of Power should be easily recognizable as a generic fantasy world. Some audiences felt the Rings of Power nailed this, but user Hell is Where I Want to Be, what a wonderful name, believed that this effect hindered the show instead of improving it. I feel like the general generic feeling of its aesthetic is a valid complaint. Now, again, I humbly disagree with that, but I almost wish that that's what they'd done instead of basically taking a Tolkien thing and doing some of the things that they've done with it. Yeah, you're welcome, Connie. And Matt Cheatwood, I feel like you're missing the point of the modern left. They're extremely racist against whites. They lack the ability to make a compelling story and thus can only corrupt existing. Well, that may be true. I know one of the ironies is you're discussing corrupting something that's already created. That's the I'm not arguing with you. I'm actually about to maybe not make your point, but add to it. That's the purview of Morgoth. That's the purview of Sauron. They cannot really create. They can only corrupt what's already been created. They take the race of the elves and corrupt it and make it into the orcs, and so on and so on. Let's see. The artistic editing breaks the immersion. Maybe I'll just go over that. The elven armor looks poorly crafted. I'm okay with the armor. I am going to comment on this scene. One of the things that I liked that they did was they talk. Honestly, I don't think they do it justice, but they make a point of demonstrating the friendship between Galadriel and her brother Finrod Felagund. And I know that a lot better critics than me love this scene. I actually don't. I realize it's a valid point. Nerd of the Rings says that since they don't have the rights, they have to be very careful about showing too much of the Silmarillion. So I get it. Finrod Felagund, I'm just going to tell you, the guy was a badass. And here he looks kind of helpless. The way the show goes, you almost think that maybe this is where he dies. And it's just not the case. He was amazing. It basically took Sauron himself to break this guy, and even then he really wasn't broken, but he was captured and put into a prison with Beren or Camion, and then everyone was fed to werewolves. And Finrod, on the last, when it was down to just him and Beren, because Sauron fed the prisoners to the werewolf one at a time, every day. He threw himself in front of the werewolf, killed it with his bare hands. Just think about that. And he ended up dying in the process, but he saved Beren, and basically because of that, eventually the world itself is saved. When I first saw it, I kind of was upset. And all the way up until my friend sent me the tweet, I was still upset that they didn't do more with Finrod. I kind of felt insulted and slighted. Now I have the information that they couldn't do that because of copyright. So I'm going to let that go. I'm just sharing my feelings now. JPRP1 watched it week to week while watching House of the Dragons. Maybe that's why it seemed like such a pile of crap. I'm not trying to change anyone's opinion. If you don't like it, continue to not like it. If you do like it, please continue to like it. I'm just doing my analysis. That scene, yeah, okay, and we agree on that point. That scene should have been longer. And I agreed. I wish that they had a whole episode. Like, that should have been the first episode, in my humble opinion. Her and her brother, and I don't understand why they couldn't get the rights, but what they needed to do is they're freaking billionaires. Fight till you get the rights and start the show with them and Amon, and then Morgoth coming by. And I mean, they mention it, but it would have been epic to show how the trees died and the Noldor and elves struck up. They make mention of it, and I guess that's all they could do. Again, according to Nerd of the Rings. Cyberpunk dystopia. House of the Dragon wasn't that great this season. Mid-season dragon battle and nothing else. Yeah, sadly. I haven't watched it, to be honest, but I've heard many, many people say the same thing. Anyway, elven armor looks poorly crafted. I don't know that I'm going to agree with that, but I do. It is still a criticism of mine, whether it's a legit one or not, that this character should have been so much of a bigger part of the story than he has been. And I will please remind me, I have a comment to make later on about that. Don't really care about this. The short hair on the elves, whatever. Sets and costumes don't feel functional. Sometimes that's true. The halflings, it's not grooving with me. Don't get me wrong. I like the actress that plays, what is her name? I'm having a senior moment, but Dory, something like that. I think it's more of a Dwarven name, but anyway, whatever. But I'm just not really liking their society as a whole. It just seems, I know that Tolkien kind of left a void there, but I don't like really what they did to fill it. Galadriel should be strong, but not that strong. And I at least partially agree. I don't think she should be quite as badass of a warrior. I think she should be more of a spellcaster. If she had cast some spiffy spells to kill that troll, that would have been perfect, because I'm 100% sure that the Galadriel that Tolkien wrote about could have done that. Cyberpunk says halflings are the weakest part of the show. Feels like they're only there to fill time. Yeah, and I have mixed emotions about what I think they did with Gandalf. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess he fell out of the sky. It's kind of cool, but also, I mean, it feels really strained to me. It's like we don't know how to bring him in, so let's pop him in from the sky. I've read enough of the other stuff, like the Unfinished Tales and the Book of Lost Tales. I'm pretty sure that it would have been just as easy to have them show up in boats like they did in those books. And nobody knew what they were about, but they were obviously wizards who knew how to talk and knew how to interact with people. I don't get it. I just don't get why you had to change that. And fine, maybe all you read was the appendices, maybe you read the Silmarillion, but it's kind of cool, but it would have been a lot more cool in a fantasy movie of its own rather than Gandalf. Finrod's comments about darkness made no sense. I liked them when I first heard them. Now I've heard criticisms. I won't let that take it away from me, but I absolutely respect your opinion if it's not. While I wanted much more Finrod, I did like that they at least showed the wolf scars, so that, sure, we're not going to let you know that he's a badass, but those of you who do know, we're going to throw you a bone. So that was cool. Cyberpunk dystopia. Yeah. Okay. So you know what I'm talking about. 5 wizards came on the ship. Where's the blue wizard? Yeah, I wanted to see that too. 100%. If they wanted to do something weird and wacky with them, I think that would be phenomenal, because Tolkien really didn't say a lot about them. But he did say, hey, they came over the sea on a ship. Yeah. Okay, Matt. It's not so much that I'm missing the point. I'm trying to be kind to the opposition. But let's see what you're going to say. The producers and writers are not interested in telling a story that respects the canon and lore and fandom of Middle Earth. I know that's what's told, and I about 60% agree with you, but they do just enough that I do think that there's someone, I don't know exactly who, but I think there is someone on the staff who actually does respect the canon and lore. Sadly, I don't think they're the ones that are in charge, but no, I'm going a long way about to do it, but I actually, in the end, I pretty much agree with you, because I'll get there. I know I'm kind of being slow about it. Matt Chewood, they're not restricted by their lack of rights to the material. That gives them excuses. That's an interesting point. I'll need to think about that. That gives them excuses to defend against criticism. Now, I've watched 3 criticisms of it because I wanted to be at least somewhat neutral. One of them was Nerdrotics, and he's pretty scathing about the show. I watched at least a part of Nerd of the Rings breakdowns of the show. He is mostly positive. And then I listened to a little bit of Gorilla's Random Thoughts. To them, the show is right out. And I'm pretty sure. Oh, Cyberpunk Dystopia. So Simon Tolkien is on the set as a lore master. Okay. Well, at least they have a Tolkien. But I humbly, I would suggest that either they're overruling him, or I don't know. Maybe I don't know what's going on there. The dwarves shouldn't say Aule, and I agree with that. Revealing my nerdism here. Aule is the, if I remember right, the Noldorin, the Elvish name for Aule. The dwarves themselves had their own name, Mahal, and that really should be what they're saying. You know, it's cool for Elrond to say Aule, but I think if I had written it, I would have had Durin the Fifth, or whatever. I think it's the Fifth. I would have had him respond with that. So far, he's really the only character that I can say that I'm loving. It's not. I don't know that it's enough. It's not enough. It's not enough to save my opinion of the show, but I'll skip that. All right. So those are the criticisms on Reddit. All right. John, sorry, Connie, got the stream on a few devices. Thank you very much. You're very kind. So, when we look at it from at least what we're being told is the left's perspective, the conversation, the Rings of Power is suffering a racist backlash for casting actors of color. But Tolkien's work has always attracted white supremacists. So, which begs the question, if that's the case, why are we even making it into a TV show? Just saying. But since Amazon announced actors of color among the cast of its new series, Criticisms of their inclusion have gained media attention. The coverage typically positions criticisms of the Rings of Power as backlash from true diehard fans resisting so-called wokeness. This misrepresents the situation. There are also fans who welcome the increased diversity over what is seen in Tolkien's novels and previous adaptations. Racist abuse of actors of color and a review bombing campaign against the Rings of Power suggests that there is more going on than just fan disagreement about Tolkien's world. Most of this came out ahead of the release to have an excuse for its failure, just like what Lucasfilms does. Yeah, I don't know that you're right, but my spidey sense is tingling. It just seems weird to me because, like, okay, we're in a conservative group, or ish. I know not all of us are, but ish. I don't think any of us started out just, oh my gosh, they're having black people as elves. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe y'all just made big bots and, used your Russian rubles because we're all Russian assets and made major online attacks against it. But it does seem suspicious to me. Like that thread that my friends shared, I honestly felt, I know too much about feelings. I felt like our community was being attacked in that thread. And that's why I responded as harshly as I did. And this is part of the method of dividing us. We're going to, again, I don't know if it's true or not, but it makes sense that we're going to have bots attack our stuff, and then the left's going to be upset, and then the left's going to say a bunch of stupid crap and offend the right, so we're further divided. Matt Cheatwood, if they want to make fantasy where whites are the villains and the heroes are POC, why don't they just make shows based on the culture? Yeah. Just make. There's so much that you could do, but yeah, why don't they just do that? That would have been better. But again, maybe there is an agenda. As Tolkien researcher Craig Franson explains, far-right political actors are whipping up the controversy, weaponizing it to help get fascist talking points into the mainstream. Franson shows that the right-wing outrage machine stirred up a massive hate mob through mainstream right-wing press. Fans who feel they are defending Tolkien's legacy are being used as pawns to serve dangerous anti-democratic and anti-egalitarian agenda, and siding, whether they mean to or not, with racist extremists. Fascist appropriation of Tolkien's work may seem surprising, given his anti-Nazi, there I said it, statements, which include calling Hitler a ready little ignoramus. It is not new, however. In the 70s, the books became a favorite of Italian fascists who even held a Camp Hobbit festival to promote their politics. In the early 2000s, the now former extremist Derek Black Jr. started a chat forum dedicated to the Lord of the Rings on a major white supremacist website when Peter Jackson's films came out. He told the New York Times, "I figured you could get people who liked with such a white mythos, a few turned on by white nationalism." Not all racism is fascist, a specific political ideology, but the far right always. Now, this is a telling statement. This is a telling statement. I've kind of felt like maybe I shouldn't be mocking this, but now I've lost all respect for this article. Not all racism is fascist, but the far right always has racist elements in its ideologies. Yes, Enigma Severus. Yes, I'm at it again. Welcome, welcome. I hope you've been doing well. I know I've been kind of radio silent, but man, life has beaten the crap out of me. But I am so glad to be on this stream. I hadn't read quite this far. I just read the first few paragraphs and was like, okay, I'm going to share this and we'll see what we think. But you just told on yourself right there. You're the one. I mean, you may not be the only one, and there may be some right racism going on. In fact, I'm fairly sure that there probably is. They're right that there always is, but it's in the liberal movement too. I hate to tell you. And if you don't believe me, we can look up some of the things Biden said back in the 70s. Ben Rothstein, yep. So she's writing with her own political agenda. We must demonize the critics. And in so doing, we also need to demonize Tolkien. I don't know if you're noticing that. Why do racists like Tolkien and Middle-earth? Tolkien made statements against Nazis. I'm about to lose patience, but I'm going to read just a little bit more, just not to see if it redeems itself, because the only thing that can redeem itself is an apology to Republicans and right-wingers. But maybe there's something else, some other wisdom thing that we can gain. Maybe we can support Matt's idea or refute it from this. So based on what Matt just said, he said, why don't they make shows about their cultural positions? Enigma's thesis in his PhD program was based on the fact that fictional works must have a Christian morality to actually work. Otherwise, it does not make sense and it will not work. Okay. Okay, let's read this. Tolkien made statements against Nazis and also apartheid. I think we did discuss in the last stream that he spent quite a bit of his youth in South Africa. And then someone was like, oh, big deal. Yeah, okay, whatever. This is not the same as being anti-racist or pro-equality. We're going to have some equivocation. We're going to have some. Let's justify our own hateful ideology, shall we? His condemnation of Hitler, he wrote in the same letter, was for ruining, perverting, misapplying, and making forever accursed that noble northern spirit, the supreme contribution to Europe which I have ever loved and tried to preserve in its true light. And yeah, that's Lewis, that's Tolkien, and it is absolutely true. If you don't like that they loved Northern and Viking and Anglo-Saxon things, then in fact, you probably should not love their work. I find that I do, though. So does that mean I'm inherently racist? Sashi, the man from the future. Political agenda, surely not. Journalists are all above that. They're all neutral. Nope. Have not seen any bias in new journalism. Nope. Matt Cheatwood does not agree. I knew you would not. With that, Enigma Severus, non-Christian fiction worked for many thousands of years. I don't want to get into this debate for all kinds of reasons. But what I am going to say is while I have moved further into embracing my Christianity, and I think Enigma, I think you know this, but there is a lot of pagan stuff that is actually really cool and doesn't necessarily mean that we need to go back to being pagans necessarily. I'm not going to diss anyone who does. Enigma Severus, which one would you consider a good source to demonstrate your position? Okay, they're going to debate it. That's okay. I'm going to let you guys debate it, but I'm not going to get into it. This comment shows that he believed that some people were essentially different to and better than others. This notion is foundational to racism. Some people are essentially different to and better than others. Tolkien's belief in racial difference translated to Middle-earth. Within the imaginary species, elves and humans in particular, there are hierarchies. Yes, that is true. Again, if you do not like that aspect of it, maybe you should not like his book. Evidently, she doesn't. So why is she even writing about it? I'm going to lose patience very quickly here. Tolkien's belief in racial difference translated to Middle-earth. There are hierarchies. Some humans are inherently better than others. We see this when Faramir talks about high men of the West, the Middle Ages, the Middle Peoples, men of the Twilight, the Wild, the men of darkness, and the Two Towers. So, again, if it's inherently racist, I guess we're not allowed to love it. And if we're not allowed to love it, why in the hell would you defend the makers of this show? Because they're racist too, based off of that logic. I'm just saying, where does it end? Look, I'm not saying that there's no criticism that hasn't had racism behind it. I'm not going to go that far. But I hope you can see that that's really twisted logic in that article. We're going to defend the people who are not racist, but they're making a show about a racist thing. I can't do the mental gymnastics on that. Hello, Orville Nation. Howdy, howdy. I'm out here saying random crap about the Rings of Power and how I really want to like it, and I really want to disregard some of the criticisms, but I find that I can't. Enigma Severus, you are in the debate, Curtis. You are a full-fledged master debater. If I was, I would have handled that last stream a lot better. Well, maybe not. It's kind of hard to debate someone who is frankly likely high. Hey, Orville Nation. Howdy, howdy. I would be interested to know what your thoughts are about the Rings of Power. Feel free to disagree. All I really ask is that people disagree respectfully. But all right, Sashi, my good sir, good to see you again. People saying hi to each other. PJ. All right. Oh, Matt Cheatwood, the Wikipedia, the Edda. Oh, that's actually awesome. I did not say I was against pagan works. Enigma ever says, as simply said, fictional works are not able to actually work unless they adopt a morality, which is a Christian morality. I'm not saying they are bad. Okay, I understand. All stories are middling when compared to the sparkling vampires. That's true. I stand corrected. In fact, let's not ever watch anything Tolkien ever again. Let's do nothing but watch sparkling vampires. And with my luck, someone that I really respect will be, like PJ will be, well, that's my favorite show, you jerk. It's okay if it is. I just make fun of it because I'm a jerk. There were actually some very positive things in the books. The movies just didn't do it for me, and the books, I'm afraid for me, basically I kind of feel like she ruined it with the baby thing. But anyway, we are disagreeing respectfully. Yes, sir. No, not wrong. I have no problems. I'm looking forward to the works. And JPR1, if I'm not mistaken, Rings of Power hired Tolkien scholars, turned out to be actors or something like that, ahead of the release of the first season. It was 2 years ago. I would be really, really appreciative if you would share a link, because this is stuff I don't know. Maybe I should have done more research into that, but in my never-ending quest to be centrist, I tried to look up different sources. I won't go too deeply into this, but I will at least share that I didn't do a voluminous watch, but I did a fair amount of watching Nerd of the Rings reviews of it. I am, as usual, probably somewhere in between where you guys are at and where Nerd of the Rings is at. There really is a lot of stuff that I think they got right, but there's just enough that they got wrong that it just kind of is making me sad. Sashi, I remember that incident. They used paid influencers. Well, that doesn't surprise me. Oh, yeah, and I'm sorry, I skipped this. I don't mean to get into the debate, but I'm going to highlight the points, and y'all can make up your own mind. The Eddas, the Vedas, yeah. I haven't read the Vedas. I've only read some of the Eddas. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Enigma Severus, Matt Chewood, I'm not sure what your point is about the Vedas stuff. Are you discussing the age of it? Okay. So, Nerd of the Rings, I won't share a great deal of it, but he had a few things. I guess I'll play maybe a minute or so. Hopefully YouTube doesn't ding me for that. But here's just kind of almost a random sampling of what he has to say about it.
More on that in a bit. They all clearly get their steps in for the day as they make their
maybe
only in secret to the faithful with the elves' visit in the later days. And throughout this walk, Elendil has to keep looking back as Galadriel and Halbrand lag behind in what, as a parent, is something I can really relate to. Galadriel moves on, but Halbrand's attention is drawn by the smithies in what seems like a significant moment. More on that in a bit. They all clearly get their steps in for the day as they make their way up to what appears to be the royal building of Armenils. We've got a couple more statues on the sides here, and of note here is that the right one is holding a sword whose pommel looks very reminiscent of Narsil from the Peter Jackson films. The one on the right has a similar crown design to the winged crown we see in those films as well. In the center, we have the white tree of Nimloth. Speaking of which, those gifts Galadriel mentioned earlier from the elves to the Númenóreans, one of the first is the white tree of Nimloth. Another example is the Palantiri, the Seeing Stones, which we'll be seeing in a future episode. Now, one
of the reasons why I love Nerd of the Rings, he has a massive love of Tolkien. I don't often find him being wrong, at least as far as his knowledge of the lore itself. He knows more about it than I do, although there has been a time or two when I've been like, that doesn't line up with that book over there. But anyway, it's rarely anything that makes me just decide that I can never watch him again. All right, Enigma Severus. And Tolkien is a Christian, which is why I made mention of my thesis in the obligation of morality. Matt G. Wood, sorry, trying to cook dinner and type. I understand. No worries. There are many storytelling traditions, such as the Eddas, that work just fine without Christianity. Enigma Severus, do you think we have our contact stuff too? Yeah, there you go. There you go. Here's where I'm going to go with this. This person was my source for them not having the contractual rights. But I think that what you guys are saying is very interesting, and I may spend at least a part of the rest of this stream discussing that. because if it is some kind of weird psyop, and sadly, I wouldn't put it past them. We have to make sure that we either ruin what you love, or that you can only love it by doing mental gymnastics and converting to our own ideology. If you want likely a better and much more professional review of the Rings of Power, I do recommend Nerd of the Rings. He, at least as far as I can tell, he hasn't talked about the controversies, and frankly, he's probably right to do so. I just can't help wading into the waters and then wonder why people are all upset with me. Okay, Enigma Severus, help our discussion. I'm saying Christian morality, the reason I said age, because there are three different beginnings. All right, let's move on. Going to share what Gorillas said, or what was said on his channel. This will be a little bit more like what you guys are probably wanting to hear.
Favorite guy is Farazan. Farazan is supposed to be like Trump. I'm serious. These people are like so fucking hung up on heavy-handed analogy. The election, a thing of the past 2 years ago, no one thinking about it. No, these people are still thinking about the previous election. Now I guess they did this like probably thinking about this coming one. They don't care about anything else. And I am joined now by a friend of mine, Gorilla Capone. Hey, Gorilla. Thanks for sitting through that mess. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Hey, you should feel special. I don't get out of bed just for anybody.
You know what? I appreciate that.
I'm going to pause it there. I think that's an interesting point. I think that's really interesting. I hadn't even thought of that before, and I don't know that he's right, but it's definitely something to consider. Our Farazan, if you know the lore, okay, so for those of you who don't know, a large portion of the drama of the Second Age happens on the island of Numenor. It's basically Tolkien's take on Atlantis. And Atlantis is peopled with the higher people that we've just been told we're racist for liking. Basically the people who fought with the good gods against Morgoth and fought with the elves against the orcs. Those men, those people, were rewarded with their own homeland. It was an island that was fairly close to. I'm having another senior moment. Very close to the elven home, where the elves and the gods live forever. They couldn't go there, they couldn't see it, but they were there to be close. And for centuries, the elves and the men of Numenor had commerce and fellowship, and it was jolly good time. People lived for decades longer than they normally do. The half elves ruled. Their first king was Elros, brother of Elrond, and his line goes all the way down to Aragorn. Bringing all this up, the long story that the last, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 centuries, I could probably look it up, but I'm not going to do that. But the last few centuries of the island's existence, the people started to turn cold and hard-hearted and evil. They were scared of death. Earlier on, they were not afraid of it. It was considered the gift of Iluvatar. It was the people's gift that they would leave this world and go someplace else. Well, basically, they started listening to lies of Sauron. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. Let me backtrack. Let me read the chat, and then I'm going to backtrack. Enigma Severus, I could use the beginning by referring to God always existing, or when Israel began, which is after the Hindus, or when Christianity began, which is the source of our Anno Domini time. Sashi, for too long we have been given everything. It's our time to be denied. Yes. Matt Cheatwood, or our first modern century. Right on. Sashi, I've been denied special attention from women. When do I get to receive that? Hopefully sooner rather than later. Enigma Severus, I don't know, man. I'm almost 50. I have not figured out women. No, I haven't either. No, yeah, I haven't either. So I guess I won't backtrack, but I'm going to make this point quicker than I was going to, because the thing that finally breaks the balance for me is actually around Farazan. He's a character in the show. The way they have it done is there's a queen. I can't remember her name. Is it? Oh, where is her name? Anyway, there's a queen, and Farazan is her regent, and he's evil and backstabbing, and he's meek and humble. Or I guess he's evil and backstabbing. It's hard to say in the first 5 episodes. All you really get is that he's a mildly scheming politician, and then he sends his son or somebody out to burn a ship or something that actually made no sense to me. But I didn't think about it. Is it possible? And I don't know that it's so, but do you think it's possible that Farazan is supposed to be the analog of Trump in the Rings of Power? That is Admiral Teague's thought. I do not know if I agree with him, but it's an interesting thought. Let's skip ahead just a bit and see what they say.
The the American Society of Magical Negroes for cringe stock. That's how much. That's the kind of schlock we watch. But that's the kind of schlock we watch for that.
Skip ahead.
What happened? Like very slowly, we saw people walking around. They had very little say. And then at the end, for like 4 minutes, we sang and watched a tree have tree cancer.
Well, hey, hey, at least in like the 70s and 80s, for when they know they got a bad fucking movie, at least they gave us a fucking tit to look at. Like, seriously. Well, come on, have Galadriel take the fucking top off.
I'm totally neutral as to whether I kind of hope they don't, because there's probably going to be children watching it. But tits do make most things better. Enigma Severus, I just found this poem. Rose is red, my life is a mess, but hey, at least I don't do meth. Yeah, exactly. I know places where that alone makes you a godsend. So they're talking about season 2, episode 1. So it's basically stuff that is beyond where I'm at. But if you want a cogent discussion of season 2, episode 1, which I can't really comment on because I haven't watched it, please go over and watch them talk about that. So I'm going to say the things that I wanted to say and make the conclusions I was going to make. And then if you guys are patient enough, I might read a little bit from the Silmarillion just because I love it. Enigma Severus, I honestly don't understand what the big deal is of eating animals in our country. I am sure some of these people saw The Patriot. Gibson said dog is a fine meal. Yeah, I mean, if you're hungry enough, it's one of the reasons why I keep Cassie fat. No, I couldn't eat her. I think I'd rather. I say this. I know that when you're actually hungry, things get different. How do I want to share this? All right. I thought I would have better patience, and evidently I don't. So my conclusion, at least as far as the first episodes, That did not go where I wanted it to go. I guess it's good enough though. Nah, let's present here. Galadriel was always one of my favorite characters in The Lord of the Rings, and it's probably one of the reasons why I have a problem with women is because in the back of my mind I often have that image of this regal, this near goddess. They picked a good character if they're wanting to do a girl boss. They absolutely did. She basically rules her kingdom. Her husband is essentially a prince consort, kind of like Prince Albert with Victoria. And, you know, she's a badass. I thought of her as a badass mage, but, you know, minor technicality. And here's where my spidey sense was running back then, and please feel free to let me know if you think that I'm correct or if you just think that I'm off my rocker or what have you. I give them credit that they made a friendship out of, you know, that they showed the interaction with her brother. But we get precious little true interaction between her and her brother. He's an amazing person. He gets more lines in the Silmarillion than she does. She does more badass things in the Silmarillion than she does. But we have to minimize his role. We kind of have to make him look a little weak and pathetic in that flash of a battle. We're going to mention that he died and throw a little bit of a bone to the people who love the lore, but we're not going to let you know that he's just a complete badass and all light and all freedom. Probably would have died out if he hadn't sacrificed his life. We're not going to get any of that, at least not in the first 5 episodes. If you've watched more of it and you can correct me that they talk about it later, please do so. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Meow, meow, meow. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. You know, he was taken down from Meta and then put back up. Meta took him down because he didn't have the rights to Trump's voice. Yeah. Enigma Severus, I think someone got upset at my post. I'm just bugging, guys. Our modern day cinema will never be able to recreate these good works. Producers don't take into account the culture of the time. Did I miss something? Oh, okay. I honestly don't understand what the big deal is of eating the animals. No, I already read that. I missed something. I'm sorry. Matt Chewood, I don't have a problem with people eating dogs. I have a problem with people eating someone else's dogs. Hell to the yes. Don't eat Cassie. To quote the song, here's a whole menu of other things that you can eat. Enigma Severus, Tolkien did not have a TV in his house, nor did Lewis. They had the radio. The imagination was the dominant source of vision. Producers can never fathom this well enough. Culture was carried in words. Sashi, it doesn't matter if you think what you think is correct, Curtis Selby. You will always be wrong in their eyes. And yeah, I get that impression. I do get that impression. Enigma Severus, so if it's based on who paid for them, hey, I lived in South America in indigenous locations. I don't agree with it. I was simply joking, lightening the mood. Lighten up. Hold on. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Thought I'd spare you. Try to pretend like I'm professional-ish. The other thing that I noted, even back when I watched the first 3 episodes, and I'm still noting it through episode 5, at the time at the time that they're at, which should be very close, at least within 100 years, probably even less, of the end of the Second Age, she's been married for a bare minimum of 2,000 years, or at least very close to that. I was wondering all through the show, where is her husband? I realize he's not the one that wears the pants, but you're saying he wouldn't go with her? He wouldn't back her up? He wouldn't fight alongside of her? That doesn't sound like any good Tolkien elf I've ever read about. And if she's got to go on some kind of a side adventure, she's not going to at least mention him somewhere, sometime. Like there's this weird castaway who you've picked up, who, spoiler alert, I guess is Sauron. I almost wish I didn't know that, because now it really makes me sad. But why, when he's flirting with her, why doesn't she say, "Hey, bro, I'm married, back off"? That is not Galadriel. I am sorry, but it is not. Maybe I'm sounding petty. I do not doubt that Nerd of the Rings would probably argue with me and probably have good, cogent arguments and may be true. But the woman in the show, no problem with her being a badass, no problem with her being the girl boss. But why did you feel the need to write the men out of her life? This is one of the cornerstones of why I was not able to feel like I was loving this movie, this show. I have a couple more points that I'm going to read and call the stream. John, I was looking into it. They were fake super fans. They hired ahead of time. At the time, the whole vibe just seemed like they were preparing for a backlash instead of preparing for a success. Interesting. Matt Cheatwood, having raised pigs, goats, and chickens, I can say there's no reason to eat them and not eat a dog. There you go. Matt Cheatwood, I agree. I do, however, like bacon. Goat, not really a difference in my opinion. I do understand they have limited emotions and personalities. Oh, Sashi, thank you. You actually solved my dilemma. Absolutely. We didn't know it, but Tolkien was ahead of his time, and I don't want to get too uppity about this. I know there's people in the community that are also LGBTQ, so I want to be respectful of that. But yeah, you're right, Sashi. One of the very few possible answers to that is, unbeknownst to us, she was polyamorous through all that time. And I don't think Tolkien would do that. Now, fine. We're going to hop up and down, and we don't have to do everything Tolkien said, and he's a racist. I mean, that's basically what that last article said. That is exactly what she says. Well, I lost patience with it. If we're going to have to cut such a fine point that we can't love Tolkien because he was quote unquote racist, I humbly suggest you are full of shit and that you need to get out of my face and learn to be respectful yourself. Enigma Severus, John Pontero sounds like an Amber Heard orchestrating thing. Matt Cheatwood, I'm sure you can acknowledge long history in Hollywood of romanticizing the bad guy. Yeah, Darth Vader, Anakin. Well, I mean, hell, even Tolkien did it a little bit. There's something cool about Morgoth on the Silmarillion. And one of my favorite characters is virtually an anti-hero, and that's Turin Turambar. Matt Cheatwood, what is your position on the romanticizing of the villain? Matt Cheatwood is not in favor of making evil acceptable. I understand that. The second nail in the coffin for me, it actually was the last one, but for dramatic purposes, I'm going to do this in the reverse order of the actual time that these thoughts came to my mind. If this lunkhead on the raft, who you're trying to make me like him, you're trying to build up that he's dark and mysterious and he's the new character, he's the new thing that we've added, this is the cool thing, and your reveal is going to be that he's Sauron. You have not read the book, or you do not care what's in the book. One of the two. Because Ar-Pharazôn, the book is very clear and explicit. Through the centuries, Sauron has been sitting on his dark throne. He hasn't molded the rings yet. He's already built up his kingdom in Mordor, even though they're having it being built. He's already got his dark empire. He doesn't need to pretend to be some guy on driftwood and find his way to Numenor. The book is clear that Ar-Pharazôn, in his pride and in his overweening arrogance, he usurped the queen. We see that this is beginning to happen, but he didn't, at least from the book as I perceived it, he may have done some sneaky political things, but he basically just took her by force. I don't mean to be blunt, but he just took her. And that was weird in their eyes because she was basically his cousin. And that was not to be done in Numenor. That they didn't allow that. He usurped the kingdom, and he learned that Sauron was a big badass, so he went with the Numenorian fleet to Middle-earth, and he humbled Sauron. He was such a badass, not like this sniveling bastard that we see on the show. He was such a badass, he humbled Sauron, who was barely able to kill Finrod Felagund, and he brought Sauron over to the kingdom of Numenor, and there he was kept as a prisoner, but he used his powers with his voice and his lies and his Saruman-like influence. He seduced the king into thinking that he was God, that he was more powerful than the gods, that the gods were afraid of him. So he assembled the might of Numenor and went to invade Aman, the elven home. And because of this, the gods, they surrendered for a bit their rule of the world, and Iluvatar himself struck down, the god of this world, struck down the fleet, basically killed that form of Sauron and made it so that he could never take a fair form again. He always had to be that Dark Lord. And he sunk the island of Numenor beneath the waves. This is the story. This is the canon within which they say that they had bare bones. They had all of this and more, a wealth of beautiful material within to which they could weave a beautiful story. Instead, we're going to have this weirdo on driftwood trying to seduce Galadriel, which, I mean, granted, yeah, it might be a little bit ironic, but it has nothing to do with the book as it's written. All right. I'm almost done with my rant. Enigma Severus, Matt Cheatwood, how do you see the Maleficent movies? Ooh, Maleficent 1 and 2. Matt has not seen them. Those two movies are from Sleeping Beauty, and Angelina Jolie makes a readaptation of The Evil Witch, sides with Maleficent. Yeah, I've seen the first one as the good person and the parents of the girl as evil. Hail Darth Plato. I'm ranting against the Rings of Power. I'm being completely unfair, and I am a racist Russian asset. Dobry dien. Matt Cheatwood says hello. Enigma Severus. Darth Plato, yes, you are here now. Curtis has to talk longer. Woohoo! Hello, Darth Plato. Our goal in the stream is to make Curtis the best master debater ever. Hey, if you can do that, I will accept that. I would love to learn to debate better. Sashi, just repeat the revised Sith code. Cake is a lie. There is only pie. Through pie, I gain fat. Through fat, I gain weight. Through weight, my couch is broken. It always keeps me focused. Lovely. People saying hi to each other. Darth Plato. Tolkien makes it clear. Ah, yes, Darth Plato. I love that you're here, and I love that you said that. Tolkien makes it clear that the Númenóreans were the greatest of the race of men. Yes, and it might surprise you to know this, but that makes the book, I'm being sarcastic, but according to one of the articles I just read, that makes The Lord of the Rings and Tolkien racist. So again, I can't help but see the double standard of the logic. We're going to hate on the supposed racists that are trashing this show, but yet we're also going to say that the very core, the thing that the show is based off of, is inherently racist. Begs the question, why make it at all? Enigma Severus, do ladies in Malaysia like bigger men? Because I could totally do that. Asians don't care if you're fat. They just want money. Yes, Darth Plato, Númenor is an Atlantis analog. You are correct, Matt Cheatwood. You have to see. Well, and I know I took way too long getting there. I hope you'll forgive me, Matt. But I was basically trying to, one, I always want to be centrist, but two, I wanted to follow the trail of the thought. And I wanted also to give some equal time, even if it is in an unfair fashion, to the opposition. But no, I do see, Matt Cheatwood, that maybe not everyone on the cast. I think there are some people who do love the canon, the lore, and the fans. But the people in charge, I hate saying this. I actually hate agreeing with you in this case. But I feel I am forced to by the evidence of my own eyes. I may be wrong, but I do see that the executives, the people who are in power of this show, do despise the canon, the lore, and the fans. And I'm about to make my last point. Darth Plato, Tolkien doesn't even address what Galadriel was doing in the Second Age. No, he really doesn't say much about it. And I'm okay with them using her in here. I just don't like the way she is used. And I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes version. You already know. Basically, left-wingers seem to be loving this show. Not all of them, a lot of them. And right-wingers mostly seem to be hating this show. And I'm trying to do a deep dive into why attempted centrist Curtis couldn't bring himself to love it, couldn't quite do the mental gymnastics. And the biggest, one of the three big reasons was that, to me, the Galadriel in this show is not Galadriel. She is just too different. Now, I don't want to trash the actress. I've heard she's a wonderful person. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think she does a wonderful job in the role as handed to her. But the role she is handed is Galadriel in name and appearance only. And again, I hate saying that. JPRPH1, between rights and production, season 1 was estimated to be $1 billion. For me, I don't see it. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I still feel like it's lame to me. I mean, if they could get a Tolkien there as their lore master, surely they could have forked over $100 million or something to somebody and gotten the rights for the Silmarillion proper, and then they could have done this right. They did not do that. All is strange and vague. Are we dead, or is this Ohio? Hopefully not Springfield, Ohio. Hail, Tim! Thank you for showing up. I'm giving my rant about why I sadly don't like. I mean, there are things I'm going to equivocate. There are elements in it that I actually do love. That only makes it more painful, though, because I want to love it. Like the Durin, I'm loving that character. Elrond, I think I don't know that they got him 100% right, but I can see Elrond there. But all right, it's Ohio, my native Pennsylvania. Enigma Severus, I am grabbing a flight for vacation. Oh, sweet! I will find a hotel near an optics shop. I will need to find a place with coffee and the beach. It's becoming winter here. Yeah, same here. All right, I've had all the racism and misogyny for today. Time for me to get ready for work. Okay, Sashi, thank you for showing up. I hope that this was entertaining-ish and informative-ish. Matt Cheatwood, I have no interest in being centrist. I seek to only hold positions that are true. There's no inherent goodness in being centrist. Yeah, it's hard to argue that when the bullets start flying. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is I still have those ashes in my heart, but it is hard to continue down that road when things are as they are. JPRPH1, why indeed for the DEI dollars? Sashi, Enigma Severus, the beach is an hour's drive from where I am. Enigma Severus, Sashi, just you wait till you get to work. They start all that racism again. Hold on. Spared you from a sneeze. Cyberpunk. She goes from warrior to wise queen when she gets the ring. And are you talking about the book or the show? I can't speak for the show because I haven't gotten past the 5th episode. In the books, I humbly suggest that she's never a warrior, that she's maybe a mage or a cleric or some kind of a spellcaster. But she goes from being basically a princess spellcaster to being a wise queen. Well, she's not even a wise queen. In the second age, she's not a queen yet. But by the end of the age, basically by the time the rings are forged, she has ascended to a higher status, and she ends up being one of the bearers of the ring. JPR Peach 1, give me the meat and give it to me raw. Such quality writing. I must have missed that. Was that the dwarf? I may have to take back some of what I said. Enigma Severus, Sashi, I'll bring your brother. I need my Uber guy. Darth Plato, Tolkien was making a mythology, not a fantasy. It doesn't have a real fictional history. Well, no, you're not wrong. I'm not 100% sure what point you're trying to make. But I'm listening. Enigma Severus, maybe someone was in the mood when that was written. Oh, Darth Plato, the Silmarillion is really just a sketch of what he had in mind. It doesn't really link up with Lord of the Rings. Silmarillion should be taken with a grain of salt. I disagree with that for one reason. The Silmarillion is actually what he poured his life into. And yes, it's really just a sketch compared to everything that he had. And yes, it was finished by Christopher Tolkien, or at least edited to the point that it was by Christopher Tolkien. But in my humble opinion, the Silmarillion is actually the very heart and soul of Tolkien, and it's the very foundation of the Lord of the Rings. Now, does that mean that he didn't make any? Does it mean that maybe Christopher possibly made some errors, included some things that he shouldn't? Possibly. But Enigma Severus, Matt Chewood, that position is a Christian one about not being a centrist. Just saying, not trying to offend. Please don't think it that way. Cyberpunk dystopia. Oh, more or less for the show. Okay, so again, I can't talk past the 5th episode, right? And by the 5th episode, she's a warrior. That's it. Badass one, but she's just a warrior. Matt Chewood is completely unoffended. Should not matter if I were. Offense is taken, not given. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Interesting concept. I like that. Darth Plato. Tolkien sort of implies that Galadriel was really unto herself, only interested in ruling her own land. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I can do the mental gymnastics in the show or for the show if I wanted to, but I really don't want to anymore. But you're right. Galadriel as written, again, you're right that we don't really know what the hell she was doing in the Second Age, but she was basically just interested in ruling her people. Enigma Severus has 2 copies of Silmarillion. That flipping book is hard to read. Tolkien legit spent so much time on it. Yeah, it's one of my favorite books. I've read it several times. I begin and end every year reading from the Silmarillion. That's how I spend midnight. I might be doing something else like listening to music or whatever. But the last thing I read in a year and the first thing that I read in a year is the Silmarillion. Lord of the Rings itself was a 20-year endeavor. Yeah, you're right. Maybe you haven't seen it all. Hey, Jeff B. Howdy. Thank you for showing up. I hope you enjoy the stream. Feel free to tell us if you like the Rings of Power. I'm afraid maybe JP did because he's not saying anything. Or either that or he was in and out, which is appreciated either way because I know he's busy. Silmarillion is flipping complex. I think I was 14 when I read it, and it's what gave me a studious habit. And if I had not gotten sick, I know it's a lame excuse, but it's also the truth. I think I would have been some kind of a scholar. I still have that bent of wanting to look stuff up. That was the book that taught me that because I wanted so much to understand what was going on. And I'd be like, oh, wait, who is that again? And then I'd go back. The books and the Jackson movies. Jeff B. agreed. Enigma, tough read. Best to take notes as you read it. Yeah, I didn't do that, but it did teach me. It did teach me to study and to kind of think a little bit. Darth Plato, I hear Rings of Power tried to rip off the movies with the battle, just amalgamating all the elements. Oh, you're talking about the Battle of Five Armies? Yeah, I can see that. I can actually see that. Okay. So what? Oh, more chat. Wonderful. I'm actually modeling my current fictional book on Hunger Games. I think Suzanne Collins and J.K. Rowling have done well with writing and imitating Tolkien. Yeah, I would agree. Well, I can agree with J.K. Rowling. I have yet to read Hunger Games or watch the movies, so I don't know. But I've heard good things about them. Darth Plato, Hunger Games has elements of the classics. So, to give Darth Plato the Cliff's Notes version, I've wanted to love Rings of Power. There are elements of it that I do love just because somebody screwed up and actually got some of Tolkien in there. But I suggest that it is not enough. I would also suggest that it is at least, if not more, actually, no, I would say more, against the core and the canon, which I know some people argue there's no canon. And if that's the case, then by all means, I guess maybe we can do the mental gymnastics and love the movie. But I'm afraid I'm too much of a purist. Sorry, Enigma Severus. I think I accidentally did something to your last post completely unintentionally. Did you delete something? I've never done that, but I probably will at some point. Enigma Severus, Lewis was a great friend of Tolkien. Lewis is a man's entertaining writer. Lewis was not as complex as Tolkien, but Lewis was an everyday person's writer, not massively complex, but he can be. He's complex enough, in my humble opinion. And to me, it's not the biggest necessarily, but one of the big differences between them is Lewis, you know this better than I do. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he rarely wrote more than a second draft of anything. He would write it, he might rewrite it, and then that was it. Whereas Tolkien laboriously went over it over and over and over and over. And that is a point that I guess you could say the opposition uses to some effect. I would suggest, though, that that argument is not enough for me at any rate. It's okay if you do love it. I'm not trying to convince you not to. It may sound like I am. I'm just trying to explain my reasons. I'm being an apologist for why Curtis doesn't like it. Darth Plato, Tolkien is persona non grata in colleges. Yeah. That didn't used to be the case. Can you repost? You saw it. Cool. Okay. Matt Cheatwood, Enigma Severus. I'm actually modeling my current fictional book on Hunger Games. Okay. Jeff B. Rings of Power saw all episodes $1, no rewatch, or season 1, no rewatch. Season 2 was a no-go, though too disappointed to waste my time, though the reviews are fun. So basically, he watched the first season. You watch the first season, but it's not good enough to rewatch. And between that and the reviews, you feel no desire to watch season 2, if I'm understanding it correctly. Darth Plato, I'm just a fan of how the Hunger Games give such a great story with so many backstories. You feel the place existed, which marks a great writer, like how Tolkien created a world. Yes. JPRPH1, the reviews are how I stuck with season 1 at Jeff B. Okay. So again, Darth Plato and Jeff B. I'm doing an apologetic thing for why I don't like the Rings of Power. It has nothing to do with the races. I don't care. If I was a true, absolute purist, yeah, I could probably go and say, well, there were no this and there was no that. I can forgive some discrepancies, but there are others I can't forgive. One of the things I can't forgive is taking one of my most beloved characters and totally changing her into something that I think it is obviously demonstrable she was not. My second point was this weird thing that they did with Sauron, which again, you can go to the books, and again, if you want to say Silmarillion's not canon, I guess I have no leg to stand on. But if you go to the Silmarillion, it is quite clear that Sauron went to Numenor as a captive because Ar-Pharazôn basically bullied him into surrendering. So the stuff that's happening on the show has nothing to do with that quote unquote reality. Hunger Games resembles the Greek legend of Theseus and the Minotaur in King Minos' maze. The first season was like a car wreck. I couldn't look away. It's vandalizing art. Are you talking about? I mean, it's okay either way, but are you talking about the Rings of Power, or are you talking about the Hunger Games? I'm not really sure. Enigma Severus, Darth Plato. Yes, it is marking. It's marking of Rome's Colosseum games. This is also where our world will eventually get to. Once again, the killing of others as entertainment. It will return. Darth Plato, postmodernism is neo-barbarism. And lots of people are agreeing here with Jeff B., or at least JPRPH1 is. Darth Plato, it is the hierarchy of our world and demonstrating power and control. It's a repetition in history. Yes, it is. Now let's see if my chronic fatigue has conquered me and if I can remember my third point. I may not, actually, embarrassingly enough. So there's Galadriel. There was Sauron. I probably already talked about this, though. But yeah, my third point, the point that really tipped the scales was, in fact, what they do with Ar-Pharazôn. I never thought about him being the Trump, as Admiral Teague suggests, but he, when I first saw him, I was like, okay, that's cool. He's there, and there's the Queen. So that what they're probably going to do is have him, take over after the fact, and this Driftwood guy is going to tip the scales some way or another. And then when I found out that he was actually Sauron, I just realized they really don't care what's in the book. They care that somebody cared enough to put some attention into the details, but the actual producers or writers or somebody with power over the show just does not care. And I'm sorry to be kind of anticlimactic here, because I ended up getting emotional and kind of delving point 2 and point 3 all together. But that was the thing that made me realize that I can't go for it. And I didn't realize that until I'd gotten to about the 5th episode. And then I was still kind of up in the air. And then I heard a review, and it turns out that this guy is Sauron. And that means that essentially the character of Galadriel is not in this. Sauron is just misunderstood. He's not the being of absolute evil, and therefore there must not be an absolute evil, and therefore this whole thing is pointless. And Ar-Pharazôn, far from being a evil anti-hero who is strong enough to humble Sauron, is actually just a demented caricature of a bad politician. And so I guess I'm reinforcing Teague's point that they probably were thinking not of Ar-Pharazôn when they wrote this character, but of Trump. Darth Plato, there's no third point. There may not be a need for one. I'm sorry I was anticlimactic about the way I did that. Darth Plato, the current writers are so kneecapped, they're even ruining George R.R. Martin's works. Oh, I hate that. Third point, time for a beer. I guess if I want to invent a third point, just to have a third point, Gandalf falling from the sky. Sorry, it's right out. The books are pretty clear that the wizards arrived in a ship from Westerness. Darth Plato, LOL. I honestly believe D&D were too prideful to know what they did. Nothing to benefit that story. Darth Plato, I meant Hot D, but gotcha. GOT as well. Enigma Severus, D&D single-handedly destroyed their own reputation by thinking they were the essence of GOT. Interesting. Yeah. I can see that, actually. Darth Plato, there's a weird mention by Tolkien about a meteor man, a Maya. I don't remember that. Please, either jog my memory or let me know, because I haven't read every single one of the things. And I'm okay with them having a meteor man. It's just him being Gandalf. Really? Okay. JPRPH1 says I did a fine job. I think I did right up until the end. Look up Meteor Man. You know what? Going to do that. Then I'm just going to freaking read and call it a stream. Meteor Man. Tolkien. They'll probably just talk about the show, sadly, but Meteor Man identity explained. Is that what you're talking about, or is there something in the actual books? Who is the Mystery Man? Mystery Man's identity and rings of power. Here, I'm going to run, unless you've got something. Enigma Severus, did you know both Tolkien and Lewis were wanting to write a time-traveling work? I did know that. I can't remember exactly where I read that, but yeah, I did know that. I'm going to quit sharing this. Actually, no, I won't. I'm going to look up Meteor Man, and we shall learn about something together. Let me know, though, Darth Plato, if you're actually talking about something else, because I'm pretty sure all this has to do with the show. I doubt if it has much to do with the books. I hate how StreamYard does that. It's one of my few complaints about the program. All right. Screen Rant. Stranger's identity confirmed. Why he must be that character. The stranger is a stranger no more. In The Lord of the Rings of Power. But what does his shocking true identity mean? Since The Rings of Power's very first episode, a veil of mystery has been cast over Daniel Wayman's character, the Stranger. Falling from the sky in a ball of flame, Middle-earth's naked newcomer quickly befriended the local Harfoots, but couldn't help hurting them repeatedly with his powerful and uncontrolled magic. The Rings of Power tried very hard to convince audiences the Stranger could be Sauron. And season 1's finale goes so far as to call him by that name, the Dweller. And I haven't got that far. The Dweller, Nomad, and Ascetic finally catch up to the man they've been pursuing and worship him as Lord Sauron. And only after spending some time with their master do the trio realize they made a terrible mistake. This sounds confusing and kind of irritating. The Rings of Power never actually speaks the Stranger's real name explicitly, only the title of his order, Istari. Although there are other wizards in the Lord of the Rings canon, including Radagast the Brown, Saruman the White, and the mysterious Blue Wizards, the Rings of Power Season 1 finale heavily implies the Stranger is Gandalf. Is that what you were talking about? Oh, Jeff B. Well, Gandalf was an Istari. Yeah, well, yeah, not wrong. Darth Plato. Tolkien says his name was Tilium. That is ringing a bell. Enigma Severus, C.S. Lewis, apologist to the skeptics, has interviews about their goals and works, which they wanted to do. Now, I have not read that, but I read it somewhere. I Can't remember where. Enigma Severus, I have also a picture of Lewis' first meeting of Tolkien. Can you guess where that was? Was that at his shit? I should know. Was it at his room in the university? I should know that, but I can't remember. JPR Pitch 1, I think you would honestly enjoy nerd erotic weekly recap of the episodes as you're watching the rest of the episodes. Those are what made it enjoyable for me, not just his, but any of the weeklies. Enigma Severus, Lewis met him in a pub. Okay, that's right. I've been to their local, or Enigma's been to their local pub. It was called the Bird and Babe, or as it's called, the Eagle and Child. I had fish and chips and a beer. They have private booths. Darth Plato, Tolkien-based Treebeard on C.S. Lewis. I did not know that. I probably should have, but Rings of Power, Season 1 finale, first confirms the stranger is an Istar. The Dweller realizes it, then the accusation resonates with Middle-earth's Meteor Man in a way that immediately tells him she's right. The Lord of the Rings, the Istari are the 5 wizards who come to Middle-earth and aid in fighting Sauron. Audiences had long theorized the stranger could be the Rings of Power's version of Gandalf. Visually, the long gray hair and wild beard vaguely resemble Ian McKellen and Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings movies, while the gray clothes provided by the Harfoots further add to his physical Gandalfisms. Moreover, the stranger's friendship with Harfoots could foreshadow Gandalf's affinity for hobbits in The Lord of the Rings. Throw in use of powerful magic, the desire to help Middle-earth, whispering spells to insects, and the fact that Gandalf is by far the most marketable character alive during the Rings of Power Second Age era, and no one could say the signs weren't there. After the Dweller and her people proclaim the stranger as an Istar, Meteor Man still doesn't remember his name or life before arriving in Middle-earth. The line that alludes toward his identity comes at the very end of the Rings of Power Episode 8 during a conversation with Nori, when the stranger advises, always follow your nose. Gandalf uses this very same line in Fellowship of the Ring when speaking to Merry, leaving little doubt that he and the stranger are one and the same. As extra proof of his Gandalfness, the stranger turns his enemies into moths, referencing the insects the wizard speaks to in The Lord of the Rings. Does this have anything to do with Tilion? Control find. Yeah, it is nowhere in this article. So, not helpful to me. Sorry about that. But it is ringing a bell. Trying to remember the ones that I've read. I've read the Book of Lost Tales 1 and 2. I've read The Unfinished Tales, The Lays of Beleriand. I can't remember. Jeff B., The Inklings, Enigma, Severus, Darth Plato. Yeah, Lewis and Tolkien both were respectful of their works, but also not the biggest fans of each other's works. Darth Plato, the sound effects Treebeard makes is Tolkien, mimicking the noises Lewis made when teaching his class. Room hom. I've only seen up to episode 5. So, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm hating a little bit that Gandalf is not Gandalf, but majorly hating that they wrote the men out of Galadriel's life, majorly hating that Sauron is just not even Sauron. He's not evil personified. He's not a demon. He's just a handsome, misunderstood guy. And I am hating on Ar-Pharazôn being not a kick-ass warrior and leader, even though he is evil. He is demonstrably and obviously evil. But in the book, he's a badass, or at least he's a badass as far as organizing an army. I suppose it's arguable whether he's a badass fighter, but he's a badass when it comes to organizing an army and a navy. And it was a big enough army and navy to intimidate Sauron himself. Instead, he's just a Donald Trump wannabe. So, Enigma Severus, I know it may not be massively popular. I did enjoy the Hobbit movies. I did too, but I had to do mental gymnastics. And that's part of what I'm dealing with here. Am I willing to do the mental gymnastics to enjoy this or not? And really, I'm kind of not. Yes, they were extended and wrong. I enjoyed them mainly because of the Watson actor playing the lead. Yeah, oh yeah, the acting in it was amazing. Enigma Severus, yes, my good man. The Inklings, Oxford is an inspiring place. The city is so mystical, and honestly, it can be easy to dream of fictional works there. All right. So, I'm going to finish by doing a little bit of reading. All right. In Rings of Power. Before I do so, I want to have an image up. I don't mean to be mocking, but take a look at this guy and see if you can understand why I'm upset. It wasn't a deal breaker, but I'm still upset with what they did with him. Darth Plato, after the defeat of Morgoth at the end of the First Age, Sauron did petition Herald of the Valor for possible surrender and forgiveness, but he fled instead. That is correct. That is correct. Enigma Severus, me too, and the dragon, voiced by Sherlock. Yes, 100%. Love that. I was going to make a joke about Curtis reading, but he has been reading this whole stream. Yeah, I've been ranting too. But I could probably find a YouTube video that would do better. But I want to read Tolkien, damn it. So I'm going to do so. All right. Just to put in a little bit of context, Finrod Felagund is the king of Nargothrond, which is a hidden kingdom under the hills. And basically it's a thorn in Morgoth's side. And he made an oath, if memory serves, to Barahir, who is one of the lords of the earliest men, to arrive. I'm having a senior moment. To arrive at Beleriand and help the elves to fight Morgoth. He gave him a ring because he saved his life in a terrible battle. Maybe this is the scene. He saved his life, and he made an oath to him that if he ever needed help, he could call on him. Hopefully I've got my facts right. I'm just tired enough. Enigma Severus loves Cumberbatch. I really did enjoy the whole story. John says, I so wanted to like them. I enjoyed the Hobbit releases at the time. Matt Cheatwood needs to go. Good stream, guys. Thank you very much. Take care of them goats. Thank you so much for your support. And we'll talk later. David Riley Plus. Good evening, Curtis Selby. Little Movie Perp is live. Please give him a shout out. Yeah, shout out to Little Movie Perp. I keep missing his streams. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, we're talking about the Lord of the Rings, or the Rings of Power. Why I, at the risk of sounding like a bad person, cannot bring myself to like them. Be well, Matt. All right. Greetings, David Riley Plus. So, Finrod, Baron Urkamian. I don't know if I never really known if I'm pronouncing that right. But that's always been in my head the way I pronounced it. Baron Urkamian came to him with the ring and basically claimed his oath. And Finrod gathered a gathering of the few people who would follow him because he had evil relatives who basically corrupted the kingdom away from him. But he got about, I want to say, a dozen people to follow with him. And they were waylaid by the tower that was ruled over by Sauron. And this is what happens there. On the evening of autumn, Felagund and Beren set out from Nargothrond with their 10 companions. Wasn't a dozen, it was 10. They journeyed beside Narog, which is a river, to his source in the falls of Ivrin. Beneath the shadowy mountains, they came upon a company of orcs and slew them all in their camp by night. They took their gear and their weapons. By the arts of Felagund, their own forms and faces were changed into the likeness of orcs. And thus disguised, they came far upon their northward road and ventured into the western pass, between Red Rethrin and the highlands of Tarn of Foon. But Sauron, in his tower, was ware of them, and doubt took him, for they went in haste, and stayed not to report their deeds, as was commanded to all the servants of Morgoth that passed that way. Therefore he sent to waylay them and bring them before him. Thus befell the contest of Sauron and Felagund, which is renowned. For Felagund strove with Sauron. Now, granted, this isn't as badass as I probably made it sound, but he strove with Sauron in songs of power. And the power of the king was very great, but Sauron had the mastery, as is told in the Lay of Leithian. He chanted a song of wizardry, of piercing, opening, of treachery, revealing, uncovering, betraying. Then sudden Felagund there swaying sang in answer a song of staying, resisting, battling against power, of secrets kept, strength like a tower, and trust unbroken, freedom, escape, of changing and of shifting shape, of snares eluded, broken traps, the prison opening, the chain that snaps. Backwards and forwards swayed their song, reeling and foundering. As ever more strong the chanting swelled, Felagund fought, and all the magic and might he brought of Elveness into his words. Softly in the gloom they heard the birds singing afar in Nargothrond, the sighing of the sea beyond the western world on sand of pearls and elven land. Then the gloom gathered, darkness growing in Valinor, the red blood flowing beside the sea, where the Noldor slew the foam riders, and stealing drew their white ships with their white sails from lamplit havens. The wind wails, the wolf howls, the ravens flee. The ice mutters in the mouths of the sea. The captives sad in Angband mourn. Thunder rumbles, the fires burn, and Finrod fell before the throne. Then Sauron stripped from them their disguise, and they stood before him naked and afraid. But though their kinds were revealed, Sauron could not discover their names or their purposes. He cast them therefore into a deep pit, dark and silent, and threatened to slay them cruelly, unless one would betray the truth to him. From time to time they saw two eyes kindled in the dark, and a werewolf devoured one of the companions, but none betrayed their lord. I'm going to skip ahead a bit. In the pits of Sauron, Beren and Felagund lay, and all of their companions were now dead. But Sauron purposed to keep Felagund to the last, For he perceived that he was a Noldo of great might and wisdom, and he deemed that in him lay the secret of their errand. But when the wolf came for Beren, Felagund put forth all of his power and burst his bonds, and he wrestled with the werewolf and slew it with his hands and teeth. Yet he himself was wounded to the death. Then he spoke to Beren, saying, I go now to my long rest in the timeless halls, beyond the seas and the mountains of Aman. It will be long ere I am seen among the Noldor again, and it may be that we shall not meet a second time in death or life, for the fates of our kindreds are apart. Farewell. He died then in the dark, in Tol in Gorhoth, whose great tower he himself had built. Thus King Finrod Felagund, fairest and most beloved of the house of Finwë, redeemed his oath, but Beren mourned beside him in despair. In that hour Luthien came, and standing upon the bridge that led to Sauron's Isle, she sang a song that no walls of stone could hinder. Beren heard, and he thought that he dreamed, for the stars shone above him, and in the trees nightingales were singing. And in answer, he sang a song of challenge that he had made in praise of the seven stars, the sickle of the Valar that Varda hung above the north as a sign for the fall of Morgoth. Maybe it doesn't impact you the way that impacts me. I was 14 when I first read those. To this day, my definition of manhood is strongly influenced by these characters in Tolkien. And right or wrong, again, it wasn't the thing that finally flipped the switch, but the beginning of my not liking things was to take that character who was just amazing and died to save a friend and died to fulfill an oath. And basically lost his kingdom to do it, and died in a dark dungeon. This is all just a footnote here. And it really, it felt, maybe it's just me being too sensitive. Maybe I'm doing what Matt Cheatwood said, taking offense when it wasn't meant to be given. But it offended the hell out of me. Because if there is any truth to seeing an agenda in this, and I don't know, I don't have the receipts, not meaning to get on to any of you. It's my job to look this crap up. But if there is an agenda, it seems to me to be the writing out of men and writing out what is best in men. And I can't bear that. I mean no disrespect to my liberal friend. He has his reasons for loving it. He sees it from a completely different perspective. I do not want to take that from him. If he loves it, then God bless him, and God bless the different vision that he sees. Darth Plato would just ignore Rings of Power, honestly. I meant to, but then, after my friend shared that tweet, and I got upset, and then I watched it, and now I'm not so much upset as just sad. I don't think if there is an agenda, I don't think the people that are on the second or third tier, I don't think the people who produced or wrote this, I don't think that the people that are doing the slapping in the face actually understand where this ends. See, if you write out the noble elf, if you take that out of the story, all you end up with is the orc. You end up with the soulless. You end up with the lifeless, the unpoetic machinations of a dystopian world run by maybe not literal demons, but forces that I would suggest could have demonic purposes behind them. I know I'm kind of demonizing a little bit, so unfair maybe. Darth Plato, postmodernists take glee in getting reactions from people and then just deny them that. No, it's not a bad point. That is my take, for good or ill, right or wrong, on the Rings of Power as I have watched it so far. I may watch some more. I haven't made up my mind. But at this time, I'm afraid I do see something sinister in it, and I'm maybe I've gone too far down the right wing rabbit hole, but that's where I'm at. The Ring of Power showrunners think that they're fixing it. Well, yeah, it was a racist work of a racist person, so you got to fix it. John says, you give great advice, Darth Plato. And Enigma Severus, well done, good sir. Thank you. I don't know if it was, but I'm gratified, especially coming from you. That is high praise. I thank you. Whether you like the Rings of Power or not, I do strongly suggest go read the book. Part of my offense with my friend was they hadn't read the book. They'd just seen the show. And I tried to explain to him, you have a work that you like. What would you think if basically they took your favorite characters and rewrote them in a pretty ridiculous way? And then he kept trying to persuade me, and I just let it go because I'm not going to convince him, and he's not going to convince me. At the end of the day, I still love the man like a brother. And I may not love Rings of Power, but I do still love Tolkien, and I still love The Lord of the Rings. I am going to call it a stream because I want to give you time to go to Netters. Soft prone music away! Jeff B. Baron and Luthien are on Tolkien and Wife's headstone. Yes, you are correct. And Baron is actually only my second favorite character, but he's pretty freaking badass. and so is Felagund. John, you had been more centrist on the subject than was deserved, and again did a damn fine job. Thank you very much. I am sorry. Again, I'm sorry for the last stream. Won't happen again. Making no excuses. Your call is important to us, Darth Plato. All right, let's thank everybody in the chat. Oh, so many people in the chat. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So many good and intelligent people here. I hope I didn't, if anyone disagrees with me, again, feel free to respectfully disagree. JPR Beach 1, John Pontorero, thank you so much for your support, all the information. Thank you for sharing so many things with me on Twitter. Wonderful person. Thank you for the prayers. I need them. At Resolute Germ, hello. One of these days I need to watch one of your cartoons. Matt Chewood, thank you very much for showing up. I hope you're taking care of those goats. And thank you for your patience as I was so slow getting to the point. Bauglier. Cyberpunk Dystopia. Thank you very much for showing up. I hope you are doing well. I hope I didn't step on, because while I don't think you exactly liked it, you liked it better than I did. And you say that it did get better at a certain point in season 2. So hopefully I wasn't disrespectful to your view. I haven't watched that far ahead, so I can't, in fairness, make much comment. Thank you very much, Connie Cleary. Thank you for showing up. I know you are dealing with some health issues. I hope that you are healing well and rapidly. Who else? Enigma Severus. Thank you very much for showing up. Appreciate you for your love of Christ, Lewis, and Tolkien. I know I can kind of be a little lukewarm about my Christianity. I'm sorry about that. But that really is my order of spiffy heroes. Jesus, Lewis, and Tolkien. Maybe undeserved, but that's where it's at. As far as Lewis and Tolkien, I mean, there's probably a bunch of saints I should put ahead of them. Sashi, the man from the future, he's at work now. I hope you're recovering well. I know you had an auto accident. I should have brought that up by now. Orville Nation, thank you very much for showing up. I'm so gratified that you came. I hope that, because I know that you're open-minded, and I know we share a love of RFK, but I may be more right-wing than you are, and I hope that I didn't step on any of your thoughts or beliefs. I respect you very much. You've been incredibly helpful to this channel. All right, who have I left? I know I'm missing somebody. I think I know who it is, but I want to keep scrolling for drama. Drama Flakes, successful, happy people eat Drama Flakes. This show is sponsored by Drama Flakes. Darth Plato. Batgirl is hot. I will die on that hill. Oh, I knew I was missing some people. I'm missing some people. Jeff B., thank you very much for showing up and for talking about the Inklings. Thank you very much. And I know there's at least one more. There we go. David Riley Plus, good evening. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for the kind comment. And shout out to the Little Movie Perk. Need to watch more of their stuff. So there it is. I'm going to end the stream. We have about 30 some minutes before Netter's network. She's talking to somebody pretty cool. So I think you won't want to miss out. Oh wait, there's been more talking. Enigma Severus, no need of an apology. All good. Thank you very much. Yeah, Augustine, Saint Augustine. Sorry about that. My scholarship is, as you can see, it has massive holes in it. I've done the best I could, I think, but I've got massive holes in my knowledge. At 60, I'm still in my early Augustine phase. I love you people. I hope that you learned something. I hope you were entertained. Gonna do my spiel. Nobody here to interrupt me. I'm just pointing that out. Being a little snarky. It's been said that life is pain, and anyone telling you otherwise is trying to sell you something. That is indeed true, and I am trying to sell you something. Trying to sell you on the idea that liberty is better than tyranny, freedom is better than slavery, that you are in fact intelligent and wise enough to run your own life and not have to be told how to live it by big corporations or big governments. And that while we should and in fact will submit to legitimate governments who we have chosen or had a part in choosing, that have demonstrated that they have our best interests at heart, we will not submit to bullies or tyrants. And in this context of this show, thank you very much, JPRPH1. You're so kind. You're so kind. In the context of this show, we also will not say that we see what we see. We're not going to deny that you see what you see, but I am done trying to say that what you see is valid, but what I see is not. I'm done with that. And lastly of all, know that you are not going mad. You are going sane in a world gone mad. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day. Hopefully I see some of you at Netters Network. Also, Raquel is doing a watch party, so if you prefer to go there, that would also be awesome. But I will likely, I will definitely go to Netters. I may ping pong between the two. Now my computer's doing something weird. Why does it do that? Okay. World gone mad. Evildoers, you face the thick spoon. Okay, I'm going to call it a stream on that note. Have a good evening.